Hello Rovers and welcome to the History of Wuthering Waves special program. I'm Sidney Ma, your host for today, and I'm joined by, just me. With version 2.0 of Wuthering Waves approaching to bring us Rinascita, the brand new region that has never been showcased before, there is no better time to take a look at just how far rovers have journeyed in Wuthering Waves. In this program, we'll take a look at how rovers have helped change and shape Solaris 3 until now, going all the way back to the exclusive beta for our rovers in China during 2022. So sit back, grab some Yinlu tea, and let's start by introducing you to the amazing team that works non-stop to make Wuthering Waves possible, Kuro Games. On the 19th of September 2014, Kuro Games was founded under the name Zhuhai Kuro Technology in Zhuhai, China. During April the next year, Zhuhai Kuro Technology would relocate 100 kilometers north to Guangzhou. It was here where the small team at the time worked on their first ever title, Twin Tail Battleground, to be announced in China during September 2016, 2 years after being founded. 4 months later, during Jan of 2017, their title would launch in Japan, South Korea, China, and Taiwan. Shortly after the release of Twin Tail Battleground during March 2017, Zhuhai Kuro Technology was renamed to Guangzhou Kuro, or what we call Kuro Games. Within the next 3 months of changing their name, Kuro Games established the development of their second title, Punishing Grey Raven, which we just call PGR. During the development of PGR, Twin Tail Battlegrounds reached its end of service in December of 2018, just 2 years after its release. Seeing your first project reach its end of service is never a happy moment, but the reason for this was the massive 2019 that was in store for Kuro Games. During the course of 2019, PGR had 3 beta tests before finally releasing in December 2019 for the CN community only. PGR was a massive success for Kuro Games, which led them to start working on the global version of PGR that released in 2021 and began working on Wuthering Waves during December 2020. The development of Wuthering Waves officially started in 2021 by their new subsidiary Kuro Technology in Hong Kong. Rovers were not aware of Kuro's plans or work on Wuthering Waves until an announcement on March 23rd of 2022 from Kuro Games via their social media accounts. This was the start of the hype for Wuthering Waves, and rovers in China were able to get their first taste of what Wuthering Waves was envisioned as from the launch of the Technical Test on the 4th of July 2022. I'm sure there are plenty rovers at home who don't know of the features and stories from the first iteration of Wuthering Waves, so let's take a look at the spectacle that was on offer. The first bit of information comes directly from the CEO of Kuro Games during an interview with TapTap on the 29th of July 2022. This is where it was revealed that Wuthering Waves would have 6 major regions, and 3 of them are what we know today as Huanglong, Rinascita, and the New Federation. The main storyline was also centered around Resonators fighting the Stellar Remnants, who we know as the Praxidus. So that would be Scar, Frelova, the Cloak Girl, and the President. The original setting was traveling around the world of Solaris 3 after the effects of the Lament, and suddenly mysterious dragons started appearing to repel the devastating threats of the Lament. Although these mysterious dragons were able to repel the Lament, Solaris 3 still suffered great loss. But through great effort and never giving up, civilization began to rebuild into 6 nations, and we as rovers would journey through the era of restoration, fighting the ideals of the Stellar Remnants to build a better world. Sounds incredible, right? And just to give rovers a glimpse of what the setting was like, here is the opening sequence of the Technical Test with English subtitles.
我要讲的这个故事发生在很久以前，名为悲鸣的灾难盘根错节地渗透这个世界，人类在绝望中失语，也在沉默中兴盛。那是伴随风险与希望的兴盛，失序者肆意地蹂躏着这片土地，人类在混乱与纷争的废墟之上，渴求光明的泽披。刺破暗潮的微光，连接生命的秘密。他们应时而生， 被赋予使命的共鸣者，紧握着薄如蝉翼的希望。他们拨开笼罩已久的阴霾，试图击碎灾难的温床。唯有呼啸的寒风为他们营造胜利的赞歌。然而，毁灭的火种被再次点燃，创意之地再度凝气，潜藏于世界背后的暗流蓄谋着新的风暴。那些笼罩在迷雾下的余烬仍在燃烧。
Wow, that was amazing! Not only did this give us an overview of the settings, but you may have noticed some unfamiliar faces or figures as well. At the very beginning, there was a mysterious figure with a grey raven, which is a subtle reference to Kuro's second title, Punishing Grey Raven. The person holding the raven looks like a member of the Rinascita. Ooh, scary. Rovers who played in CBT1 eventually found out that this is the president of the Rinascita thanks to interactions between Scar and Frolova. The president also has a tacit mark on the left hand, which may or may not place symbolism to Rover's right hand tacit mark. We don't know, we'll have to wait and see. During the cutscene, we can also see a glimpse of Encore and Gian. Encore might bring a bit of nostalgia to Rovers who have followed Wuthering Waves since then. Encore originally went by the name Anka. The final character we get to see is Chun, who we now know as Camellia. This old design of Chun might look a bit familiar to someone else coming up in version 2.0 of Wuthering Waves. Most of the characters, both Resonators and NPCs in Wuthering Waves, had some changes to their designs. The biggest change from the technical test to what we have now is Chishia, our Fiyama submachine gunner. Her design went from a more gothic appearance in the technical test to her bright and bubbly red and white by the time CBT1 released in 2023. Rina also saved up her shell credits to get a new outfit, as she decided that her Black Shawl's outfit did not look good when losing 50-50s on event convenes. Yeah, I've lost 4 50-50s in a row. Rina also went by the name Joyuan in the technical test. Of course, there is so much that has changed since the technical test, and we still have plenty in store for the special program, so we'll briefly go through some of the most significant changes that Rovers can chat about amongst each other. The city and map of what we know and love as Jinzhou went by different names in the public beta tests. In the technical test and CBT1 of Wuthering Waves, the name of the city Rovers were found outside of was Tiangchen. Even though the devs have completely changed the look of Jinzhou, the map from the technical test can still be found today on the vehicle during the Pioneer Association collab events. Every character has been reprised since rewriting the story, so this could be the 10% of the story that was never changed or rewritten going into CBT2. Not only did the visuals of the game change, there were also massive changes to the mechanics and combat system. One feature many Rovers would enjoy today is swinging around with the grapple hook. This is sort of Camellia's Blossom Mode feature, but in the technical test, Rovers could gain momentum by moving in a certain direction. In addition to a different grappling mechanic, Rovers in combat also had elemental reactions. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through every reaction, so here are all the possible reactions that were available. Before outro skills were introduced, Resonators would synergize according to their elements, so when they take the field, they perform an attack with some special effects. Pistol users could also use a charged attack while in midair, something we can no longer do in Wuthering Waves. Building your character had the biggest change from the first iteration of Wuthering Waves. In the technical test, there was a completely different system for obtaining additional stats increases. Resonators still had weapon types, but their skills would not be found under a Forte section. Instead, they were called Sympathetic Abilities. In the Sympathetic Abilities tab, Rovers could individually level up each skill of a Resonator. One of the skills on this page was your Echo skill. Echoes, as we know today, provide our Resonators with stat boost, whereas in the technical test, they were only equipped with an additional skill. Instead, to increase your stats, you would equip up to 6 sound records in the empathetic abilities tab. This is something similar to the way Punishing Grey Raven character builds work. I know, right? Can you believe it? 6 total slots? Not only were there 6 slots, these sets only required 4 of the same kind to fully activate the said bonus. This is quite a significant change to what we have now. Echoes are way more important because they provide the stat upgrades, and you need to have a full set of echoes to activate the said bonus. The resonance chain was also a lot different to what we have at the moment. Instead of just having 6 sequences that you can unlock by getting duplicates, each sequence had subsequences that you would have to unlock. Again, this system is similar to the rank system in Punishing Grey Raven. As far as the story goes, Motefe was hostile towards Rover and eventually betrayed Rover to work with the exiles. Alto and Uncle were still side by side, but in this version, Alto was more of a merchant selling items than an information broker. The first public test for Wuthering Waves sure had plenty of content for rovers to dive into. As time goes on, I'm sure we are to see some features that once existed in the game return in another form. The next part of this special program is CBT1, Colcharo, and Dungeon, 2 resonators that rovers are super excited to see show up during the story. Before we get into it, it's time for our first redemption a quick break. Alrighty, welcome back rovers. After the technical test of Wuthering Waves ended, players waited 10 months before having the opportunity to experience what the devs once again cooked. On the 24th of April 2023, rovers in China, the USA and Canada had the chance to dive into CBT1 of Wuthering Waves. This beta brought in plenty of new content for players and a minor rewrite to the original story from the technical test. While the overarching plot of the story remained the same, there were some changes to accommodate the new features. Instead of saving Chenpi at the beginning like in the technical test, Yang Yang's life is on the line in CBT1. Other features include a complete UI revamp, from a more colorful map and geographical changes to changing the character build system. The Convene feature was available for the first time, with General Jian as the featured 5-star and Danjun, Mortify and Yanwu as the featured 4 stars. The Convene screen and animation was different from Rover's experience today. When making a summon on the banner, rovers would have to swipe across the screen the same way that PGR works. One of the most amazing features from CBT1 that rovers really hope is added back in future versions of the game is the world message feature. Rovers could leave messages around the world of Solaris 3 for others to read. If you've played a Souls game like Elden Ring, then you'll know of a similar feature. Players also get to meet 2 characters that have not appeared in the current story of Wuthering Waves. I'm sure you can probably guess that it's Colcharo and Danjun. Danjun is the more surprising one, considering you meet her in both the technical test and CBT1. Although Danjun as the character remained the same, rovers experienced a completely different story around her. With the map changes from the technical test to CBT1, new environments opened the opportunity for different story plots. In CBT1, there was even a cutscene with Danjun and the Lampilumen Myriad in Tiger's Maw. In the magical dim forest, rovers would meet Colcharo, who came through in the nick of time to save us from a wild Hooscamp attack. As rovers investigated the mystery behind dim forest, Colcharo accompanied us and helped us to eventually defeat the Felian Berengal dwelling in the depths of the forest. Scar and Prelova also made an appearance in their own cutscene. While this is no longer close to what we experience in today's version, this scene provided significant insight to the relationship of the Fraxidus Overseers and their higher up. Scar forcefully invades an exile camp to find more information about Rover. But Scar being Scar, he also decides to wipe every exile member before Frelova even gets the chance to arrive. Frelova and Scar then have a brother-sister-like argument where Scar says Frelova is jealous that he has been given the freedom to do as he pleases. Frelova then reminds Scar that he has responsibilities that need to be met. These responsibilities have been given by the president. We as rovers assume this is the president of the Fraxidus and not Lucian, the president of the academy. Character build also had a complete change, and this is where we got to see echoes become part of the stat increases for rovers. In the CBT1 special program, Kuro Devs highlighted this change and even highlighted a set bonus that provides almost 20% crit rate. I'm sure plenty of rovers out there would love this set, but almost all of the echo sets in CBT1 are different from what we have today. This meant that the 6-slot sound records were completely replaced with the echo system. This was a major change for gameplay because it made farming echoes necessary, whereas in the technical test, it was more of a feature that was just there if you wanted it. And this changed the system from 6 slots to only using 5 echoes. We also saw major design changes for Chishia and minor design changes for other characters. By the 12th of May 2023, CBT1 came to an end and Kuro Games took in all the feedback to make Wuthering Waves the best possible game in the industry. But before we get into the last segment of the special program, let's take a quick break. Welcome back, Rovers. After the conclusion of CBT1, the devs took on a massive decision to rewrite 90% of the story of the game. Within the next 9 months, Kuro Games essentially rewrote a brand new game using the assets from CBT1 while making some upgrades and reforming the landscape. The reason for this, even though CBT1 looked amazing from an overview, is because of the shading creating a depressing atmosphere rather than apocalyptic, and the story felt like it was a mission-based experience where you just have a new task to do, report back, and get a new task. Completing the rewrite of a game is not easy by any means. Wuthering Waves was originally announced to release during March 2024, but because of these changes, the release was pushed back by 2 months. When you consider that Kuro rewrote 90% of the story within 9 months, and then only delayed the release by 2 months, the developers really did the impossible. It was a moment for the devs to risk it all with the changes, but considering the game's nominations for the Game Awards, I think those risks paid off. So let's take a look at exactly how the devs did it. With CBT2 and version 1.0, the public beta test was more than just a test for Kuro Games. It was a love letter from the greatest devs to the greatest community to show what Kuro is prepared to do for rovers based on what we ask for. Version 1.0 introduced a completely new shading and atmosphere to the world of Solaris 3, a new entity of threats called Overthrax and the Dreamless, a complete overhaul of the interface for character menus and UI of the game, new echo sets, new and redesigned characters and echoes, and much more for rovers to enjoy. Elemental reactions called the Concerto system were taken out and replaced with the intro and outro system using Concerto energy, everything that we as rovers experience playing Wuthering Waves today. Version 1.0 to version 1.4 has been the perfection of all the feedback starting from the technical test of Wuthering Waves. Kuro has worked non-stop to provide the features for rovers to play the game exactly how we want. To make sure that Wuthering Waves is only delayed by 2 months, the release of version 1.0 included Jinjo only. In CBT1, rovers were already able to visit Black Shores, where by version 1.3, Black Shores was finally introduced to the new story of Wuthering Waves. Finally, around 9 months after the initial planned release date, set for March 2024, version 2.0 is releasing on the 2nd of January 2025. Essentially, version 2.0 of Wuthering Waves is what was initially planned for release on March 2024. But those 9 months of rewriting meant that Kuro could either release the rewritten segment slowly, which they did, or release version 2.0 as version 1.0 on the 2nd of Jan. In this day and age, you won't find a company as brave and determined as Kuro Games to rewrite 90% of a game, taking the biggest risk for investment while still doing it for the community and releasing shortly after their planned release date, considering all the delays. On top of this, Kuro Games also had to compile the game for PlayStation 5 rovers after version 1.0 finalized in development. Being Kuro's first time posting on the PlayStation platform, Kuro first had to submit their publisher identity for certification, which required version 1.0 of Wuthering Waves as proof of their publication. Sony will then send a developer kit for publishers to compile the game for PlayStation, so Rinascita and the features we as rovers wanted had to already be completed before submitting the final product to Sony for evaluation. Now with Rinascita releasing, Kuro Games has formed the greatest reputation and the greatest community. The effort of Kuro Games has been recognized worldwide as Wuthering Waves has been selected for multiple awards in the Game Awards. I'm sure every rover can agree after listening to the entire history of Wuthering Waves, Kuro Games deserve these awards. So for all the new rovers joining the journey of Wuthering Waves, 2025 is going to be a great year for the game as we enter the chapter of rebirth in Rinascita. The devs have now reached the point where everything in Wuthering Waves is brand new to rovers and was designed from scratch following the feedback feedback of the community. That is all for this special program. Don't forget to tune in to the Game Awards on December 12th to support Wuthering Waves and Kuro Games, and get ready for Rinascita releasing on January 2nd. Bye bye!